everybody. I never know where to look. I'm sorry, I can never tell exactly where the lens is, and I definitely look super cockeyed anytime I film myself talking. But I have a little written script because I knew I would forget some information. Basically, what I'm gonna be doing today is another predictions video. I did one earlier in, I think, like 2021. I was right about a lot of that shit too, so go watch it. Maybe I'll do a video comparing what I said and what actually manifested or materially came about. But with that being said, hi everybody, my name is Kayla. I'm a professional astrologer and tarot reader. I'm literally looking at my script. I'm sorry, I have really bad ADHD, so if I don't look at it, I'm gonna go off script and I'm gonna get lost. I made a video a little over a year ago with some very loose predictions about what I thought the next few years was going to look like, and it was more so focused on social media and lifestyle trends. However, upon completely overworking my brain through a lot of readings, personal readings, transits, stuff like that, and learning far more than what I understood back then astrologically, I decided to make a more cohesive video, what we're doing today, to compare historical transits to what astrological things we have coming up in the next few years, and really using the stars to our advantage and understanding the world we live in now, engaging where we're headed in the future. With that being said, I'm not trying to evoke any fear in people. I'm not trying to scare people. That does nothing for me. I myself am a very anxious person. I tend to get anxious looking into this stuff sometimes. I don't think that's a good enough reason to not look into it, because history repeats itself when people are ignorant to that history, and with being able to predict it astrologically, we have more of a chance of counteracting any potential destruction that typically comes with history repeating itself. So if you're interested in this content, please like and subscribe. This is all interpretation. I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And if you're interested in more content like this, subscribe to my Patreon for a daily, weekly, monthly horoscopes and introspective astrology. I also talk about stuff like this, not usually on like a predictable basis. Like I'll talk about what we're going through now, but more recently I'm trying to like look 3 years ahead. That way it can help the people that are investing their money into me to be ahead of the curve, whether that's helping them make more money, helping them make better decisions that their future self is going to thank them for, things like that. It's a very affordable monthly subscription. You can cancel it whenever you'd like. I have 3 different tiers. The cheapest one is $5. And other than that, if you'd like to book a reading, a one-on-one reading, such as a birth chart reading, compatibility analysis, life purpose reading, anything like that, tarot reading as well, everything you need is going to be listed in the description below alongside my socials. So without further ado, let's get into the video. I'm dead at me literally reading a script. The main window of time I'm going to be analyzing will be the next 5-ish years up to 2030. I'm focusing on this period specifically because we have some huge generational pivot points with the outer planets closing up some very long generational cycles. On this period specifically because we have some huge generational pivot points with the outer planets closing up some very long generational cycles. So I'll particularly be focusing on these transits. Saturn moving into Pisces, Pluto moving into Aquarius, Uranus moving into Gemini, and the nodes transiting into Aries and Libra and Pisces and Virgo axis in the next coming years. This ring light, it's hot. I don't know how content creators do this shit 24/7. Alrighty, the first thing I'm going to read you is like a little bit of an outline that I had from my Patreon post that I posted the other night that was kind of like a preview of everything I'm going to go over today. So if you thought 2020 was a doozy, it's going to be so insane in the next few years. Again, I don't like to promote any fear. I just think through translating astrology, and especially people who invest in me through Patreon or readings, like it's my duty and my responsibility to tell you everything that I see, to share my findings that I have, rather than being like, actually, I think this is going to be a really healing transit. I think everybody's going to be healed. I think everybody's going to find their twin flame. Like, so many astrologers and tarot readers and people just in the spiritual space love to blow smoke up your ass. There's so much misinformation, misconception, and just complete bullshit out there. And I'm not the type of person, I'm not going to sit here and tell you you're a star seed, your twin flame, your soulmate, the person beating your ass is your dream person. Like, we got to stop with that stuff. It's going to send people into spiritual psychosis. And the astrology stuff that I'm looking at, this is the thing about astrology, and this is why I love it so much. It's so fun to analyze because it's so black and white. There are themes within signs, planets, transits, things like that. And by looking into history, the last time those transits happened, we can see, oh, if this is what happened then, and now we're dealing with it in this way with a little bit of differences, this is how we can pretty much to the T figure out exactly how this is going to play together, fall apart, or fall together. It looks like it's going to fall apart a little bit, with the knowledge that we have of how it's happened historically. Like, obviously within chaos that happens politically and socially, financially, things within like capitalism and the economy and stuff like that, is there still going to be people who have the ability to like heal and find love and be able to like, you know, get through trauma that they have? Yes. But what I'm talking about now is collective stuff that's going to like shift our direction. So, with that being said, let's get into some collective transits unfolding within the next few years. War, aliens, the destruction of like organized religion, I think, is something that we're going to be dealing with. Mind control, technology like internet, social media, mind control. We knew that. Fake news, we knew that too. I think is going to eventually gain enough momentum to where it's like literally altering people's perception to know reality from deception though. People attempting to be revolutionary leaders just to be executed off every platform, thus erasing their existence entirely. And I do think that information that we have, something that I've personally learned, particularly like in 2020. Sorry guys, we had to do a little switcheroo to photo booth because my phone storage, of course, shit out right when I need it. What I was saying was something that I particularly learned in 2020, probably when the George Floyd stuff was going on, was that I was seeing so much information about slavery and racism, systematic oppression, things like that. And obviously, like, as somebody too that identifies, I guess, as someone who's more liberal or left-leaning and pretty much has my entire life, I thought I was like a well-aware person. And of course there's like, you know, whitewash feminism, there's like racism that, you know, guilt racism, things like that. And that I had to do a lot of dismantling and unlearning around that time. But something that I didn't know and that shook me to my core was that there's so many things in textbooks that are just lies. They're just incorrect. It's not how things went down. There's so much missing information. There's so many untold stories. And I think that's something that will become a reoccurring theme alongside that same idea, is that we are going to really need to value our firsthand experiences to tell our truth, rather than things that were historically fed to us, that were written and published in a certain way to create a certain ideology or narrative. I feel like there's going to be some like major, I don't even know the right word to use. I don't think it'll be a particular moment or an event, but something where people will start to have to rely on the firsthand experiences and like the raw footage or content, or the I was there and this is what happened between, you know, normal working class people to be our news, or to be our way of understanding what's actually going on. We know the news is catered to like, you know, people thinking they're on one side or the other side of politics, and like it being geared to feed us a certain narrative. We know that. That's not anything new, right? I'm getting a little shiny. But obviously it's still a big, as much as we know that, it's hard to know what's going on without watching the news. But things like Twitter, social media in general, TikTok, people posting I was there and this is what happened videos, stuff like that, has become a better and more reputable and more honest news source, because we can't trust anything. And there's stuff going on in foreign countries that we have no idea about, whether that be war, protesting, crazy shit happening that like won't even touch American media or news outlets or anything like that. And I think that a large theme will be that people will have to get their news and information, and their knowledge will be incredibly valuable, because nothing else will be dependable or reliable in terms of reality. Does that make sense? I guess what I'm saying is, because like with Pluto moving into Aquarius and then Uranus also being in Taurus, with Pluto leaving Capricorn, so both the earth signs there, we have Pluto, death, rebirth, transformation, and Uranus being dismantling, destabilizing, completely bringing new innovations to the earth signs. It's shaking the foundation of like authority, rules, government, things like that. And once it moves into Aquarius, an air sign, information, speaking to people, connecting with people, being more changeable in terms of like adapting to the group, things like that, and diverging against the authority, being rebellious, to have some things going on between those two signs, the fixed signs, like I just feel like there's going to be insanity around the us versus them type of thing. No longer us versus each other. I think it's finally going to shift to where the collective is like, wait, you guys were making us fight each other the whole time when you're the problem. Let's talk about it. Like, that's what I feel like is going to happen. And it's going to, I think, come in the form of, oh my God, we can't trust the news anymore. And obviously we know this, like younger people know this, but older people don't. And they've defended it for so long that I think it's going to become something that we can no longer defend and have to literally go off of word of mouth. And this is a total side note. I want to talk about this in my future podcast, but things like gossip are valuable because gossip is how things get around. It's how information gets around. Women being degraded for like the misogynistic perspective of like women talking being equated to frivolous gossip has saved lives and literally like saved villages and things like that. And I feel like we're going to see the resurfacing of that where like women being in each other's ears or saying like I saw this or my husband was involved in this or I think this is going on is going to be like the very thing to honestly lead to like I don't know, a revolution. And I don't think that's that insane to say at this point, but let me stop going on my banter. See, I should have just had a full out script because I knew I was going to get distracted. So let me scroll up a little bit more. Let's see what I wrote on my Patreon thing. So I said, with the nodes in Aries and Libra, which is going to be pretty soon. It's going to be happening around next summer. And the nodes always change signs about every 18 months or so. It's usually going to be a year and a half, 2-ish year cycle every single time. We're used to this. It happens all the time. You've probably survived a million nodal transits in your life if you're like literally over 5 years old. So I do think war, point blank period, because Aries and Libra is the axis of like, again, me versus them, or who am I versus who am I in my relationships. It's self-identity, independence versus groups, partnerships, relationships. And Aries is happy to like stand on its own. It's a cardinal sign. It's ruled by Mars, literally the planet of war, but it's also very aggressive. It's masculine. It's assertive and knows what it wants. It goes after it. It rules desire, being the first, the fastest, the best. Libra's an air sign, so similar to Aquarius. It's very chatty, social. It's good at adapting. It's good at giving the benefit of the doubt. It's good at finding the balance, the peace, the harmonious aspect between relationships and partnerships and groups and collaborations. I think that, and it rules justice too, which plays a big role in this. And I think that with the nodes moving here, the nodes aren't a planet, they're just a mathematical marker in the sky. I think being in these two signs, we're going to see war, and it shows, what am I saying here? It shows in history and becomes a part of our reality with each passing day. I'm talking about war here. And it's almost inevitable at this point with a lot of destruction around partnerships, participation of first world countries and third world countries using their power to herd their countries and the people of those countries and funnel them into something alongside like dictatorship. And I use that word lightly because I'm not necessarily referring to like the political definition of dictatorship, but rather just that I think countries will form alliances with each other with the same shared goal of stripping their people of their autonomy. And obviously we, again, people who are like, I don't want to say woke, but people who are like aware of what's going on politically and with the economy and just how the government works. If there is even a stroke of people still believing that our government cares about us, or they have our best interests at heart, or they're trying to make sure everybody's healthy and good. Like, no. If the actual goal was to ever keep the nation's people safe, provided for, have access to resources, things like that, it would have been done a long time ago. It's not that complicated. Rules, laws, and accessibility would have been put in place. Every time we have an election, it's not like, oh, there's one good guy and one bad guy, and hopefully one of them finally saves us and knows what to do. They know what to do. No one wants to do it, because that would mean that our country would be a good, cohesive place. And the more healthy we are, the more we aren't going to blow all of our money, run up big pharma, be addicts, be filling up the hospitals, filling up the jails, things like that. So, with that being said, I think that there is obviously maybe a more obvious exposure of those goals, those malicious goals to make us sick, make us unhealthy, make us poor, and kill our fucking brains with things like porn, addiction, social media, capitalism, things like that. And it will become a lot more obvious to, I think, people who were very blind to that previously, like somebody who just watches the news every single day and thinks that, like, you know, the vaccine was free because our country wants us to be so healthy. I think people like that, who have been on that side for so long, will start to come to terms with the fact that, like, shit is not good. And I think that this is going to bring a lot of justice to Aries, those independent people in our lives who have been written off as like the black sheep, the conspiracy theorist, the crazy one, the one who is on the computer too much, reading too many Reddit theories, things like that. And that's not to affirm any like actual spiritual delusions or anything like that, but I think that a lot of people who have seen this a lot earlier and been saying this for years now will get their justice and being like, I told you, see? Because those things will become a lot more obvious, and I think that their war, I think, is just gonna come with the nodes being in Aries. But alongside that, there will be an idolization and cancellation of brave, everyday people standing on their soapbox as leaders and gaining a lot of traction as an authority figure, only to be deplatformed or censored online, stripping them of their access to the masses and keeping everybody blind/ignorant. So those with a divergent perspective or strong message will be publicly shamed. And I think that, again, we obviously see this, so many people, like, it's ridiculous, the censorship on all the social media apps, especially because they're buying each other. They're all part of the same machine. People who make holistic recipes to help you boost your immune system so you don't get sick, those people get reported and taken down in like hours. And then there's content around a 16-year-old literally basically nude, and that stays up no matter how many people are reporting it to keep that poor girl safe, or to keep people from jacking off to a 16-year-old, to a minor. It doesn't get taken down. And again, that's the agenda that I think is around, like, keep them dumb, keep them stupid, keep them distracted, keep them sex addicted, money addicted, spending addicted, food, drug, alcohol addicted. And when it comes to things like that, child pornography or content that is just brainless, that stuff does well. And then when people actually try to step in to help, even if they're not this like super abrasive personality that's like, the government is lying to you, they literally get taken down. They'll get so many followers so fast because people will be like, oh my god, this is such valuable information, and then it gets taken down, or that person goes missing, or they get reported, or they make a second account and that one keeps getting messed up. And it's like so hard to get in touch with this person. And because we're so technologically, social media reliant, if somebody is deplatformed or you take their social media mic away, you're not going to hear from this person again. And by stripping them of that access or that platform, you are dead. You're technically dead to your audience, because people don't meet up in real life anymore. People don't go to, shows, things like this. Like, working class people are not these performers and stuff like that. So when they post a video online that gets millions of views, if you take that from them, you're cutting their mic off and nobody can hear what they have to say anymore. And I think that that's something, again, that we're already seeing, but that will become more prominent, where we'll see the rise of people who are maybe a little bit more divergent or stating the obvious in a way that is a lot more digestible for people to be like, wait, they actually have a point, or like they know something. Again, going back to our experiences, our own experiences and knowledge being so valuable that people will start relying on them for news or for their ability to expose important information really well, or somebody's experience for working for the government or something like that, or the FBI or something like that, and them sharing information, and then it's like zilch. They're gone, they're deplatformed, cutting their mic out. That's like the type of thing that I'm talking about here. What else? I also do think I'm going to get into this in a little bit more later, but I do think there will be like false prophets that will be going on and be very believable in terms of like maybe faith or spirituality, and they won't get deplatformed, but they're literally going to send people into like spiritual psychosis. It's like a false idol type of thing. On a surface level, relationships and marriage will get a hard reality check. People will be physically separated from one another, so we will see more content around daily vlog, day 200 of day 200 of no human interaction. So this is the type of thing where, like I said this on TikTok, a lot of people make prediction content where like they will just state what they already noticed going on. And like it won't be really a prediction because they'll just catch something a little bit early and be like, this is going to be a trend, or this is what's going to be popular in the next year. And things like that aren't shocking to us, because if a trend is a trend and you're really predicting it accurately before it starts, it's going to sound crazy. It's going to sound insane. And I said this on TikTok, but it's like, no one would have believed you saying Crocs were going to be a fashionable statement prior to seeing the beginning of that happening, prior to seeing, I don't know, Bella Hadid wearing them, or Uggs, things like that. A real prediction is going to make people be like, there's no fucking way. And I feel like we've seen, it's so Black Mirror to think of like COVID happening and then seeing content that's like, my COVID vlog, or like my day 14 of quarantine, like something like that, and it becoming this normalized thing that we see like teenage girls making content around. And that's like what I'm referring to here, where I feel like there's I'm gonna get into this in a second once I talk more about like Saturn and Pisces and stuff. I think there's going to be another phase of like quarantine, but just isolation and not having access to people in real life, whether that be through illness or just a protocol. And I think that I'm like picturing a vlog literally similar to the COVID wave, quarantine wave, of someone being like day 200 with no social interaction, and it's their little routine, and it's like normal. You know what I'm saying? And with Libra, I like, the reason I said on a surface level is because Libra and Aries is literally just like independence versus partnership. So like less talking about war and the collective and the government and politics and things like that, and more talking about like what we're going to see on social media and stuff like that. Because this is the thing, like if somebody told you right before COVID, we're going to have this crazy fucking epidemic and everybody's going to be stuck inside, it wouldn't have seemed believable because it sounds so dystopian so quick and so urgently and abruptly. But it didn't feel that crazy even when it was happening, because there was still people normalizing it through content, through, Amazon shopping lists, through product recommendations and affiliate links and things like that. And that's what I mean. Like when I say a war or isolation or more insane illness or the destruction of organized religion, things like that, it sounds insane. And it sounds like there's no way that would fly or something like that. But it will be this like little progressive like crescendo of that intensifying. And we will see it bleed into things like trickling down content or like certain products that aid in these things or something like this. Like I know this is a weird example. I guess I'm struggling to verbalize what I'm saying, but like the boyfriend pillow or something like that. I feel like if we're talking about the nodes being in me versus you or me versus us, Aries versus Libra, there's going to be like a lot of emphasis on being single versus being in a relationship. And I feel like we're seeing that already with like the rise of, Andrew Tate, femininity content, like very me versus them, me versus everybody else, men versus women, like that type of deal that is becoming more popular. And then I said on the opposite end of the spectrum, the idealization of working in partnerships or collaborations where people might cope with the world's circumstances through things like roommates, co-parenting with friends or within groups, multiple people sharing one house, committing to relationships with a neighbor or someone close by, almost like an arranged marriage twist. Like, we aren't initially romantic with each other, but we're two people who decided to be in a partnership together to survive alongside each other in our weird world right now. Does that make sense? Like, I feel like I've been beginning to see content, particularly with women, that are like both single moms. It's two best friends, they're both single moms. They start co-parenting their children together because there's a lack of masculinity. There's a lack of the father figure. So it's almost like this community-based way of surviving through communal efforts. I see this talk about like the way that a village used to raise children, where it's like a collective group of women, 10 women raising like the 3 new babies within the friend group without any men involved. Like the men maybe just paying for stuff or something, but not relying on them. Like that, I'm almost getting that type of vibe. Or where if we do have to go into like an insane isolation period again, it's like if you live in an apartment building, like deciding, okay, we might not have organically fell in love with each other, but what if we're just partners and we decide to prioritize and commit to like making sure each other's good? Like, it's like finding community within what's local to you, in an effort to have a collaborative effort towards surviving like what might be insane circumstances. I hope that makes sense. I think there's just going to be more partnership and community building that isn't like this romantic marriage-oriented thing that we're so used to. What else did I write about this? I said the gender war. We're obviously already seeing that. Men versus women smackdown and the actual dangerous hatred and villainization of masculinity versus femininity, and people ignoring the fact that we need both. For the love of God. Real news will start shaking the table. Aries is so raw and real and the first and the best and the loudest, and with its fiery leadership energy. I could see this again being normal people rising to fame through being so authentic that they become a more trusted news source more than the actual news. Obviously, this will have consequences though, because with great power comes great responsibility, and it's hard for one person to initially gain a lot of fame and trust from the collective and then not fumble it. My brain's like going crazy with like everything that I'm imagining in my head. And I'm really not even trying to be worst case scenario or like, oh my God, this is going to be awful. Like, I'm not even necessarily saying it in a bad way, because this is like, these sort of times build leaders and build like revolutionary people. And it's rarely one person. Like, I don't think it's going to be one voice of a generation, but rather that we'll see probably like a good 8 to 10 icons come out of this that maybe rise to fame through social media because they were brave enough to say something that was very controversial but honest and truthful with the intention of helping people. The consequential part of that comes people that are cosplaying that same idea but actually causing more damage. Andrew Tate in general, I could make a whole other video about this, but I think he's a really good example of that, where it's like this pseudo, message of like, I'm trying to help you, and like dressing it up in all these ways, but literally causing so much more damage. But people who are easily controlled, people who are idolizing people — you should never idolize somebody, I'm pretty sure that's a sin — people that put all of their trust into people and don't include their own experiences and critical thinking, they will follow anything that person says, even if it's leading them down to the worst case scenario. The pathway to hell is paved with good intentions. Sorry, I don't know why. That was sad. I should have delivered that better. I wrote, don't kill me, but I think the kickoff of war will be the eclipse around April 20th at 29 degrees of Aries. Jupiter will be at 0 degrees of Taurus, square Pluto, teetering on the edge of the Capricorn and Aquarius ingress that it's going to have to make. So I think this will absolutely usher in a very harsh reality where food, land, housing, and resources begin major conflict between the authorities versus the people, and we'll have to either start charging forward like all men for themselves, or gathering in groups to either conform to the mass control and censorship being forced upon us, or legit run away into the woods and live off the land. LOL. I had the nerve to say LOL after that. Again, Aries, Libra, all men for themselves, one man for themselves, whatever the saying is, versus community efforts or collaborative efforts, partnerships. And with Taurus, Uranus and Taurus, I mean, it's been here since like 2018. It's not new energy. Uranus and Taurus is like people becoming millionaires overnight through crypto. It's crazy innovations with money and technology. It's a lot of instability around nature. It's climate problems. And I think having the natural square between the fixed signs, between Taurus and Aquarius, but then having Pluto step its scary little paws into Aquarius will bring a lot of transformative instability and like the ending of actual ways of doing things in regards to money, food, accessibility, water. I do think we're going to have a water crisis. I'm going to get into that in a little bit. I wrote, if it's not a full-out war, this will be the collision of all the financial promises that were supposed to help us, such as COVID checks, student loan forgiveness, unemployment, etc., slapping us in the face and showing us again why not to trust or rely on any government assistance. The personification of, if it's free, you are the product. And this will be a punishment around taxes, money, housing, or income, where there may be a destabilizing announcement or protocol that ushers us into the you will own nothing and you will be happy era that looks promising and incentivizing, but is actually pulling the wool over our eyes to set ourselves up to be stripped of having anything of our own. For example, a cashless society will be better and will cancel all debt if we all consent to leaning into this new way of doing things, at the expense of no longer owning our own things, crypto crashes, handing over our own property, and trusting the feds to regulate it. How do I word this better? I know COVID and the vaccine is a controversial thing. I would assume anybody who's watched the video this far is probably functioning from a place of, I wouldn't fucking take that if somebody paid me. Because obviously at the end of the day, people in power, if they're giving us something free and it's supposed to help us, it's not going to help us. There's a reason for it. I hate to say it, I wish it wasn't that way. And I'm not being, some crazy, it's obvious at this point, right? So I think in the same way that the vaccine was supposed to be this huge promise of, we're saving you, we're helping you, this is going to fix everything. Once you do this, everything's going to go back to normal, everything's going to be great, everything's going to be easy again. That same idea, but now applying that to food, housing, money, debt, investments, things like that. So I think this sort of scenario where it will be like, you guys hate the debt, right? You guys have so many student loans and none of you bitches can afford to have a roof over your head. So what we're going to do is cancel all your debt. We're just going to pretend it didn't happen. We're going to call a truce. We're going to make this shit easy for you guys. But in doing so, let's introduce a new way where we can function in this society where you'll always have your needs met, but it just comes at the expense of not owning anything of your own. You're just going to have to rent everything, but you won't have any debt. And money will be easier in the future because once we do this, we promise everything's going to be fixed. You see how that doesn't make sense? And anytime there's this big incentive where it's like, if you guys just do this, then everything's going to be fixed. Bro, if they wanted to help us, they would. It would have been done hundreds of years ago. Like, the solutions are there. They know how to fix everything. They just don't want to. And I think that people are going to fall for this trick again, this trap. And that will come through the vessel of fake news, deceptive propaganda. And it won't be until people won't open their eyes or be able to really see that unless they're watching content creators and these brave people speaking up for themselves and everyday working class poor people being like, bro, how are you not seeing what's going on? But then those people will get deplatformed. You know what I mean? That type of thing. And probably some crazy shit happening overseas that like we literally don't have access to unless people are talking about it online. Uranus and Taurus. Okay, so yeah, we've been used to this since 2018. When it's in Capricorn, transitioning into Aquarius, Pluto, it makes me think the revolution / collective pushback in Aquarius will be a result of death and rebirth and confrontation the collective has to face around Earth themes, which is land, food, water, weather, basic needs, foundation, housing, accessibility, resources, etc. Like, there's absolutely going to be a very loud elephant in the room where people are literally dying from being robbed of accessibility and stripped of any autonomy while also being poor and sick. On the bright side, random people will be able to get rich overnight. On the bad side, technology restrictions and crashes will happen that prevent people being able to find major success again and again through that vessel. Crazy weather and climate shit, unexpected decisions being made that destabilize the collective around taxes, security, and finances. So, something that's interesting, Neptune as a planet is very deceptive, it's very dreamy, it's very romantic, it's gorgeous, it's ethereal, but it's also lying, cheating, stealing, deception, having the wool over your eyes, hidden information, isolation, having things kept from you, etc. So Neptune as a planet zooms through the signs, and Pluto's usually right behind it. It's always going to be behind it. Neptune is what comes in and creates this deceptive sort of dream. It sells you a dream and says, this is what you should idolize because this is what is so great and should be so valued and is so important. Sorry, my cat's opening my door. Pluto comes around and destroys that deception and wakes you up and shows you the truth of it and is like, hello, that was all a facade. That was all a lie. That was all not true. It's this wrecking ball that comes in and breaks the mirror, shatters the image of what Neptune has led you to believe, and then shows you the truth in a way that ruins everything and destabilizes the entire foundation that you never really had, that you thought you did, in order to rebuild a more honest, transformative outcome through the destruction of what was never stable to begin with. So, Neptune's in Pisces right now, which is faith, spirituality, drugs, addiction, freedom, emotions, fluidity, going with the flow, empathy, things like that. Faith, spirituality, it's water, it's mutable energy, so it's like adaptable, it's changeable, it goes with what is currently the thing. And then Pluto moving from Capricorn, so an earth sign, into Aquarius is gonna really destroy anything that the Neptune and Aquarius generation brought in. So actually, let me Google that really quick. When was Neptune in Aquarius? It's probably like 20 years ago or something. Aquarius is like humanitarianism, it's groups, it's communities, it's philanthropy, it's charity, it's freedom, it's rebellion, it's sticking it to the man. And I think having Neptune there led us to believe that maybe having all these different beliefs, or having all these different flavors or ways of doing things or understanding of things and freedom to be whatever maybe separated us from ourselves so much that it became us against each other. And now with Pluto entering there, it's going to dismantle all of those aspects. It's going to dismantle things around technology, community, even like government handouts, I think, because it's charity, it's stuff like that, helping others. Let me go back to my notes. This is so interesting. I don't know why I didn't write about that before. But I think that on the idea of like people, groups, humanity, aliens, robots, technology, philanthropy, rebellion, innovation in the future, having the most intimidating planet step foot in Aquarius on its own is a jump scare, and it'll only be here for about 2 months in spring of 2023 and then retrograde back into Capricorn. And Capricorn is government, structure, rules, authority, old school ways, the generations before us, conservatism, etc. Sorry. Until it enters Aquarius again for good in 2024. So it's going to Pluto's going to step into Aquarius for like, how many months was that? Like 2 months in 2023, and then it's going to go back into Capricorn. So there's going to be something in like, what is it, March to June or something? March, May, June of 2023, literally in the next few months. There's going to be something that is like the start, the beginning, the eruption, the 0 degrees Aquarius. That's going to be the starting point. It's going to be this is happening soon. It's going to be this is the way we're doing things. It's almost like a taste test or like a soft launch until it enters into Aquarius in 2024. So what could be happening in a few months of next year that shakes everybody? So, because it's got to be something. It's Pluto at 0 degrees of Aquarius. March to June of next year, come back to this article because this window of time will absolutely mark the beginning of major destruction and revolution around these themes. Definitely expect market crashes, crypto fuck-ups, technology chaos, and issues around hurting the collective in one direction. Then as we retrograde back into Capricorn, it's going to be like a let's try this again, or we mean it this time enforcement around rules or whatever the old fucks in office are forcing us to do. And I think 2024 will be the chapter of real chaos beginning where people will genuinely try to overthrow the government to a degree. And again, that might sound insane. When I used to talk to my boyfriend about this, he would be like, it's going to be years. It's going to be decades. That's not going to happen for like 40 years. And I was like, you're so wrong. It's going to be like 4 years, if anything. Pluto and Aquarius in history has been revolutionary wars, the Boston Tea Party, groups and communities of people dying off. I feel like it's going to bring death to the collective from an unknown or hidden source. Because Saturn will be in Pisces. Again, Pisces is like deception, hidden information, secrets. It's widespread things, like being widespread across groups of people. It's ruled by Jupiter, and Jupiter is bigger and better and scarier and more intimidating. It expands anything it touches. And people will try to speak up as leaders and reveal the truth about how we're being poisoned through our food, water, air, etc. Because Uranus is in Taurus, which is land, so basic needs, natural resources, food, basic needs, land, the earth, the ground, taxes, finances, security. Taurus rules literally nature and money. That's a good way to look at it. So with the North Node being there early 2023 still, it's going to prioritize health and wealth is going to be less about money and more about your access to your basic needs. Okay. So I think the North Node in Taurus has been health and wealth being like you being privileged if you have a garden in your backyard. You being privileged if you have access to like food that isn't poisoning you. If you have access to knowledge around how to take care of your body, your human vessel, being in a good environment that isn't sucking the human out of you. And with Pluto getting now involved in this party, I think it's going to be people speaking up about those things and trying to reveal the truth of like, we're being poisoned, we're getting sick, we're being robbed of our accessibility to these Taurus-related things. Pluto square Jupiter in the nodes, May, March 2023 is crisis for sure. Internet gets shut off, lack of accessibility or something. A little bit after the 4th of July screams war to me too. It looks like we have a few different phases or like a start then stop and then start again type of thing. Propaganda bullshit will be rampant. Be very careful with your media technology intake, like internet mind control, cyber terrorism, fake news. Seems insane at that time. Being a millionaire isn't going to mean shit anymore. Like, when we've been seeing that for a while too. Like, that's what I'm saying. Like, that the idea of health and wealth and stability being equated to, it's like the things that are real are more important right now. Your tangible money, the money, your cash, your gold, your investments that already are in your pause, are going to be far more valuable than like your crypto. Things that are more at risk of crashing or accidentally going wrong, accidentally being robbed from you. We're obviously moving into like a cashless society. There's no doubt about that. And we're seeing the like soft launch of that again and again and again. Sorry, I need a sip of this. But money is just so like, you're having poor people become millionaires within the same year of them getting on the internet. And being a millionaire literally isn't like this exclusive thing anymore. Like the goal is literally billionaire, being a billionaire. And I'm sorry, I'm starting to like lose myself because this ring light is like sucking the life out of me. Let me stick to my notes. Whatever. People will strive to be billionaires. I think, like, what I'm trying to point out is that poor people that were never supposed to have a lot of money in their lives, will have access to so much money so quickly through the internet, through technology. And that's going to be a problem, because it's going to be like, we got to stop these fucking poor people from getting so rich overnight. And that's why I think there's going to be like caps on internet money or something like that. Or people banking the fuck out after this crypto crash, and when it shoots back up, it's going to be like normal people who just didn't sell are going to have so much money on their app, and then they're going to try to take it out and it's going to crash. Or everything's going to go wrong, and everyone that made too much money through crypto is like suddenly going to lose access, or the internet's going to get shut out or something like that. You know what I mean? It's just like prevention from allowing people to have too much money too quickly through innovation. Saturn in Pisces. Saturn is where we face poverty within the sign that it's in for about 2.5 to 3 years or so. So we learn hard lessons and have our strength and will tested through excruciating challenges. Think of it as a dry spell where we're forced to grow up and be more practical in this area of life. That's personal as well, where we are having Saturn transit. But collectively, it's obviously more like we've been having Saturn's still in Aquarius, but that transit started like right when COVID took off. And Aquarius is groups, communities, the internet, social media, having, and the air too, it's air. So like coughing, like Saturn was teaching us lessons around air, around getting sick through the air, restricting our access to other people, groups of people, communities, things that were community based. So like churches, clubs, meetings, groups, school, those things were robbed from us. Saturn in Aquarius too, I think, was having to learn the hard lesson of like being careful of your social media intake and your technology intake. And it also taught us to grow up in this area and have to learn a harsh lesson here. So Pisces, with Saturn moving into Pisces, Pisces is mystical. It's water, it's an intuition, it's psyche, it's mental health, secrets, faith, religion, hidden information, what happens behind closed doors, isolation, the dark, institutions, etc. The promotion of staying inside equals the new normal. We know this, we see this, but I think it's going to be magnified more. Because in isolation, ignorance is bliss. So using faith or being told by authorities to rely on God in order to help us turn a blind eye from holding our authorities accountable. This will be rewarded. So when I say, I'll get into that in a second, but I think there will be kind of a crisis around faith or spirituality for a lot of people. And I think that, and we've seen this politically, like the crossover of politics and religion is insane and unethical and should not be so tightly intertwined, obviously. And I think, especially with the Republican Party, there's going to be an emphasis on like, we need to have faith, we need to trust God, we need to pray about issues that the government is in control of and can absolutely fix without the help of Jesus Christ. So I think that it's going to be this promotion, this propaganda of shuffling people that are very faith and religion oriented to have more trust, have more faith that things will work out, rather than the realistic approach, which would be to not pray it away, but hold the authorities, hold our government, hold our politics accountable for something that they're in control of. And I think that it might be this glossing over of like, well, if it's in God's plan or something like that, when the problem is fixable to the people in charge. Again, ignorance is bliss. Saturn in Pisces is psych wards, hospitals, hidden places in isolation, widespread illness, psychosis, mental health. Speaking out, going against the grain, you're going to get canceled. Leaning into prioritizing faith and trying to teach people to just trust God, that our problems are going to be fixed for us, while they continue enforcing and perpetuating those problems. Those people will be rewarded and pushed on social media, I think. God content is going to be on the up and up. Faith content is going to be on the up and up. Unless it's real faith. People that iconize and idolize God fixing our real world problems instead of actually voting, learning, educating ourselves, pushing back, knowing our rights, those things are going to be pushed down. They're not going to reach an algorithm as successfully. I wrote the final showdown of faith versus science once we have to face the reality of grappling extraterrestrial life. I think we're going to see some alien shit, and I don't think it's going to slap us in the face. I think this is a whole other conversation. First of all, I don't think aliens are like these weird things that we've seen in cartoons and TV where it's like these big-headed things like walking around with their pointed fingers. I think aliens can absolutely just be people form. And I think they're definitely like already among us. And I was thinking about the game Among Us too, and I was like, I know that it's like the murderers among us, but I was thinking about how like video games, movies, media, soft launches, like usually what ends up happening as a way to get into our subconscious to like make us normalize things that would absolutely shake us if they just happen to abruptly come into our frame of mind. And I was thinking of that game, and I was like, that's so funny that it was like this alien spaceship game where, or like space game, astronaut game, whatever, where it was like, there's someone here among us who is the imposter. They're pretending to be us, but they're not actually us. And that's literally like what I think of when I think of aliens. And this is what I mean by it being a real prediction. That sounds insane. You're probably like, Kayla, alright, aliens, whatever. It's not going to be the cartoon alien. It's going to be something where there's extraterrestrial life present or interacting with us, and it will be a soft babying, taste testing launch around those topics, in a way where people are going to clutch their pearls and their rosary beads. And I think people are either going to absolutely, in the same way that we did with COVID, but to a much more extreme level, lean into faith or science. And there's going to be a showdown between the two. Occultism, spirituality, things like tarot, astrology, divine knowledge. We might be getting in trouble, whether that be through it being illegal or not being like a job that is legitimate anymore as far as self-employment. It'll probably be banned off social media or like illegal to claim for income, but also at the same time, elites will be commodifying psychics. So using astrology or astrologers or intuitive people, clairvoyant people for things like elections, for intel about opposing parties, but people speaking up about trying to wake people up based off of their divine knowledge and spreading awareness about these things might get sent to things like psych wards or mental institutions for mental health crises in an attempt to paint anyone who is non-conforming as mentally ill. And I think that there might be this looming threat where if you talk about these things, you will be sent somewhere, which will keep people quiet. And occultism will have to be a little bit more under the radar. This isn't all next year, by the way. I think it's like the next 5 years. I can see this unfolding. But with Saturn and Pisces, like Pluto and Aquarius is like a 15, 20 year thing. And I don't think there's going to be a dull moment. because that's scary. That transit alone is scary. But Saturn in Pisces is only 2.5, 3 years, and that's coming up pretty soon. So these things are not far from us. The revelation and exposure of hidden information, possibly things that are going on behind closed doors with prisons, institutions, big corporations, and the elites, as well as Pluto dipping back into Capricorn, looks like destruction of authority and of old ways. We might see complete halt to international travel, flights, access to other countries, maybe even online as well, like restrictions that no longer allow us to connect with those in foreign countries because they want us to only get our news from how it's fed to us and not from real people overseas. I already talked about that a little bit. Jupiter too. Jupiter's going to be moving into Aries and then into Taurus next year. That's a shorter transit. I don't think that will shake the table as much. It'll definitely play a role within those months that it's in those signs. But Jupiter too. And, well, Saturn's going to be in Pisces. I think that's why I said it, because Pisces is ruled by Jupiter. So that also includes things like flights, foreign travel, faith, religion. And having Saturn, it's just going to pew, 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 like to all of those themes. Pisces being widespread, so the masses, us, the collective, the nation, the world, and being... it also ruling illness and confusion. It literally makes me think that there will be this unclear understanding of what's making us sick, whether that's literally or metaphorically, or I should say literally like physically ill or like mentally ill. With the earth signs, it would be our land, our food, so Taurus, but with Aquarius, it's the air, it's Pisces, it's the water. So like Pisces Neptunian energy makes me think of those horror movies where like fog or mist creeps in and like haunts people or makes them pass out. And that's so literal. I'm not saying that's the case, but I could see like random groups or communities of people seemingly falling ill or dying or even experiencing mass confusion or psychosis within groups or communities of people where there will obviously be a clear source that is causing these things, but it will be told to us in a deceptive way that hides the truth. There was this town, I don't know if it was in America or not, of people who like randomly just started having narcolepsy. Like everybody in that town was chronically sleeping and passing out. And it was like this unknown source. Like nobody knew how it was happening somehow. And it ultimately ended up being like an air quality thing or like a carbon monoxide thing or something where like literally the whole town was just straight up narcoleptic out of nowhere. And it's like a funny news interview because it's just like, how did nobody catch this? Which makes me feel like it's on purpose. But, like, kids were just passing out. People were just falling asleep. People couldn't go to school and shit. And that's, like, the type of vibe that I'm getting here. Or, like, towns, you know, when people have those neighborhoods, those, like, scary story neighborhoods. I live in Connecticut, and there's one over here, where, like, a whole neighborhood of people, or a street or something, they just all fucking go missing or disappear. And there's no trace. That's like the type of thing that I feel like might happen. Also, cults, already talked about this, whether they're religious or not. Pisces is like being intoxicated in the best and worst way. It's like, if you are the one that's intoxicated, you think this is heaven on earth. You think that you finally found God, divinity, the answers. It feels like you're falling in love, falling into the depths of what you desperately needed your entire life, your escape, your truth, heaven. But being on seeing the deception from the outside perspective of Pisces, what you would see is people that are under that impression, but are actually mentally ill, psychotic, being deceived, and completely being taken advantage of. And I just feel like Saturn and Pisces, Saturn being too like authority, rules, restrictions around those things, like it seems like such a fucking mess. And Saturn too just being like poverty and the lack thereof, and Pisces makes me think water crisis. The example I had was COVID has gotten so bad again that we can't go outside because we'll get sick, but it's actually like something intentionally polluting our air to promote isolation. Like I could low-key see people walking around in hazmat suits because they know something is up. Or something like an upgrade from a mask, for sure. Pisces being water demand increases but not enough supply, water shortage, medication shortage as well, because Pisces rules medication, and toxins, but also like things that you use for escapism or healing. God, alcohol, drugs, whether they're prescribed or not. It's like things like addictions and vices, so having Saturn enforce rules around those things is interesting to me. Lack of medication would equate to people going fucking crazy because they don't have their medication, or getting very sick because they don't have their medication. But I could also see it being the shutdown of churches or organized religion, which could also lead to people going crazy. And we saw that with COVID when people couldn't go to church. Oh my God. All hell broke loose. And if we want to get real woo-woo, this could be the discovery of hidden water or hidden land or untouched territory that is being hidden from us, or the gatekeeping of something divine. I don't know how crazy anybody wants me to get, and I don't even know how much of this I believe, but I've seen things about Atlantis, about there being like a totally different realm in Antarctica or something like that. There essentially being something, I guess, on the map, and the map being incorrect or lying or deceiving us to believe that that map is reliable, but is actually a lie, and that there's like hidden towns and realms and different like universes that the government and the elites have access to but are keeping from us, and that we're just being kept to be sick and dying here so they can control us and stuff like that. That was just my Patreon article, and there was a lot there. So let me look at some of my other notes. I guess I should make a different video. Let me see. Because there's a lot of transits that I wanted to talk about that are repeating. Like, we've seen them in history before, whether that be the nodes. Like, we've seen them in this lifetime. The nodes would be a big thing. Or like Saturn or something like that. And it's crazy, the parallels through like events that we have seen in history like already happening. And I think, you know what, I might just make a separate video because these are so fact-based, and maybe I should use photos and stuff like that. So, you know what, I'm actually going to end this here because I feel like I'm passing out anyways with this photo booth situation and this ring light. Thank you guys so much for watching if you watched it this far. I know I probably sound insane, and I probably am a little bit insane, but this isn't to even say, again, that, like, this is a fact, this is definitely what's going to happen, but I do think that, you know, by looking at history and taking things into account that have already happened, and then just using the context of what we can see unfolding right in front of our eyes, it's important and interesting to use as like another layer of technical analysis, to use astrology as this kind of guiding light or North Star to be like, this is giving us more intel to at least see a few months or years ahead, knowing what we know now in order to have a crisis averted rather than a reoccurring crisis that we didn't learn from the first 5 times. So I know this was a lot of information. Again, follow me on Patreon or subscribe to my Patreon. It's super affordable. You can literally cancel it whenever you like. I do daily and weekly and monthly horoscopes, talk about the new moon, the full moon, any eclipses. That's the $5 tier. That's the most affordable one. I have an 1111 tier that talks about this stuff. It's more like blog posts and findings, astrological findings. And then my most expensive tier, I believe, is $97. And that one's a monthly subscription for your personal transit. So what's going to happen for you, what you can expect, what the moon transits mean for you, any crazy things going on in your own particular chart. And it has a tarot reading for the month as well, and a love oracle card as well. If you want to book a reading with me, my link's going to be in the bio. Follow me on TikTok, on social media. TikTok is where I'm at usually the most nowadays. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all that I can plug. But thank you guys for watching. Subscribe if you're interested in this content. I'm really trying to be more active over here, and I love you guys. Until next time, see ya.